I'm Kara Hanley. I've been serving with the youth group for the last 3 years, and this year I'm working with 10th grade girls. I grew up in a Christian home where my parents and brother were all natural born leaders. Every time an opportunity came up for them to lead, whether it was in the church, in the band, extracurricular activities, they always excelled in these leadership opportunities. This for me meant I got to sit back and relax into the background, enjoy one-on-one relationships, and just keep building on those and never had to step in front of the crowd. It also meant that anytime I was called on in front of a group or asked to be in a leadership position, my anxiety would spike. I never had to be in these roles. It was never something that I felt called to do. There was a moment in college where God called all of that to change. One night, I was sitting in the laundry room of my college dorm at 2 a.m. with a friend, because quite frankly, that's the best time to do laundry because no one's in there. As we were talking, I brought up 2 mission trips I had gone on in high school. These were both with Center for Student Missions. And as we kept talking about these trips, she looked at me and said, "I think we need to apply." I looked at her like she was crazy. How could I be called into a leadership position? This was something I did not feel prepared for and not something that I felt like I could do. However, the longer we talked, the more we both felt called to go and interview for these positions. I figured, what was the harm? If God wanted me to be there, then he would make the interview either go well or poorly. So we both applied, and we both ended up having interviews a couple weeks later. Hers was in New York City, mine was in Nashville, Tennessee. I got to Nashville and started my interview. Throughout that whole process, I kept having this feeling that God was calling me to be there. That night, I was staying in the dorm where I would potentially be staying that summer, and by dorm, I mean tiny closet, where I would be staying that summer. And I just felt the Lord say to me, "This is where I want you. This is where I want you to be." I was absolutely terrified, and my anxiety spiked so hard, I started crying. I fell on my bunk bed just asking the Lord, "Why would you call me into this? Why are you calling me to be uncomfortable?" The longer I cried out to him, the more the answer became clear. It was because he wanted to grow me. It was because he wanted me to follow him, to trust him, to believe in his plan, to be the leader that he had called me to be. He knew I needed to step away from my comfort zone, to step away from my friends, to step away from my family in order for that opportunity to grow. He knew I needed to be thrust out of it in order for his work to be done, and for me to learn to trust him, to learn to say the things that he wanted me to say, to lean on him wholly and completely. That summer, I got to work with the most amazing staff. I was supported by people who I had just met. We all quickly bonded, shared our stories, and shared the love of Christ. On top of that, we got to meet groups of teenagers every week, and we got to hear their stories, watch the transformation that God worked in their lives throughout the week, including leaders, students, pastors. They got to see a new side of the city, see a new side of their nation that they had never seen. It also led to moments where I got to sit with people. I got to hear their story, hear their testimony, and hear how they wanted Jesus to be a part of their life and to grow in that relationship. When I got home, this continued. I had the opportunity to be an RA in college, and because I'd had leadership opportunities all summer, I was excited to pour into my girls, to be able to build those relationships and to help them grow into the young women God was calling them to be, to empower them to step out of their comfort zones. On top of that, as I continued working and after I graduated from college, I worked some really hard jobs. And I was constantly reminded that God was in charge, that he was placing me in places where he wanted me to be. Although my comfort zone wasn't always something that I wanted to step out of, he had my back 110%. There were so many moments where I got to see God take me out of my comfort zone, and because he did that, I got to love on others. I got to share the love of Christ. My heart was opened up in ways that I never thought it would be. The love that he grew in me that summer, the passion, the empathy, it was something that I have carried on my entire life. Because of that summer, that's part of why I'm a youth leader now. It was part of why I became passionate about leading teenagers, about helping people find their passion, about helping people step out of that comfort zone and go where God is calling you to go. It's not always easy. It's not something that I look back on and say that was an easy moment in my life. It was hard. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of transformation. But God's glory is through all of it, which made it a lot easier.